Good morning, everybody. My name is Imran Subrathi. I'm a member of the Portfolio Committee on Communications and Digital Technologies. I'm standing in at the request of the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, the Honorable Kusela Sangoni Diko, who will be joining us in a bit. She's had to drop off some documents at one of the embassies, and she's asked that I start the meeting in her absence. So I welcome you all, and we appreciate this opportunity given to the Portfolio Committee to engage with the team at Post Bank. Today is day 4 of a week-long oversight visit that has been undertaken by the Portfolio Committee as part of our legislative and our responsibilities of oversight to ensure that the executive is carrying out the functions that is expected of them, to understand the challenges that we are facing, and to collectively find means and ways of overcoming these challenges. I wish to recognize the chairperson of Post Bank, Kaya Ngema, as well CEO Nikki Mbegashe. Did I get that right? Teminkosi is handwriting, that will be. So Nikki and Kaya, thank you so much for having us here. Gabonga, thank you so much. We look forward to a fruitful morning of engagement. I've received an apology. Minister Soli Malatsi, the Minister of Communications and Digital Technology, was to join us this morning for the opening session, but he's forwarded an apology, so we wish to tender his apology and we accept his apology. We have about half a day that has been allocated of today with Post Bank, and the time allocation that we've agreed to in terms of the program that is going to be flighted. Teminkosi, can the program be flighted, please? The first part of this morning would be an engagement with yourselves, in which we will receive the sustainability strategy of Post Bank. And the second will be the update on the implementation of the variation notice orders and the progress on the licensing of the bank. And thereafter, we're going to be proceeding to do an oversight of the post banks themselves, as well as the various centers where the migration is taking place. And the afternoon, from about 1:30 onwards, we are going to be in another engagement. So our morning is quite tight. I must apologize for the late start this morning. So may I therefore, and we want to be finished with the formalities of this engagement. My committee secretary mentioned 11 o'clock, but I would beg an indulgence of 11:15 at the most, so that the committee has the opportunity to engage the presentations that will take place. An area of emphasis for us, in an emergency room in a hospital, there's a triage department in which they manage which is the most critical cases are treated first. So the guidance given to us, Nikki, by the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, as she called me this morning, was that Imran tried to deal with the issue of focus initially on the entire migration process, so that we understand that, because that has been triaged as critical for us. And thereafter, we can go into discussing the sustainability model. So my request to you, Nikki, as I welcome the chair of the Post Bank to give us their opening comments, maybe, is to just keep that in mind. The chairperson of Post Bank.
Thanks, Program Director, and as honorable members. I should probably start by apologizing. I told Sabel I'll start by apologizing that I'm supposed to be welcoming you to Post Bank's offices. Unfortunately, we're between offices. We were removed from another office and we are still to get into another one, so we are at a hotel. Nevertheless, without being the owner of the hotel, welcome to Post Bank, to honorable members. I think that the second thing to say is that we have a presentation prepared to answer, I think as the program director was saying, to answer the issue of, and correctly, is this a viable proposition in a context where a number of SOCs are collapsing, a number of SOCs are calling on National Treasury for this and that National Treasury can't help them with? Is this one of those open mouths waiting for something, or is this a real entity that can both sustain itself, but more critically, make a real difference to the South African economy, to the South African society, in particular in terms of facilitating financial inclusion and economic inclusion? So we want to make that point as the second part of the conversation, but also to deal with some of the financial difficulties or complications that arose from the business rescue process that we would obviously have to deal with in the building up and the recovery of the bank. Before sitting down, Chair, I just want to make the point that we also are cognizant, and that would be my closing, that our current performance is quite pivotal to the confidence that society will have on us, and we want to talk about that, and it's important that we talk about that. The only thing I would say, Chair, is we have not faltered at any point on the payment of social grants. For almost 2 years, we have paid them seamlessly without any trouble. And it's an important point to make, because a lot of the concern about the current period rests on whether grants would be paid. And the evidence, at least before this one, is that grants will be paid, and we know that the coming cycle of grant will be paid on the current cards and so forth. But I think I'll leave that to the CE to talk about. I want to say we're making tangible progress on governance, risk and compliance, and our audit performance will speak for itself when it gets presented to the committee. And then I want to say we're making tangible progress on the fulfillment of the variation notice conditions, and the reports will give progress. But obviously there's this batilanto, there is this matter of the last condition, which is the removal of non-compliant cards and replacing them with compliant cards. So we need to talk about that, and I'll leave that to the CE to explain some of the challenges. I think we're making progress as well there. The numbers will show, but there were some wrinkles, and I think the CE will speak to those and how we deal with them. But I think the most important thing I will say as I close, Chair, is we will not disturb the payment of grants either way, and that's our priority in how we're running the project. Thank you, Chair.
I think let's give the chairperson a round of applause. Thank you so much, Chairperson. We feel very welcomed here coming to Marriott Hotel. We hope in our next visit you will be able to welcome us to your own place. And as I welcome the CEO to address us, it's about just after 9:52, 9:54. I would say, see if you manage your time for at least 40 minutes to about 10:35, 10:40, if you can hand back to us, and keeping into mind the priorities that we asked you to focus on. We invite the CEO, Nikki, to address us now.
Yes. Is it this? Please, thank you. Is it showing? It's not showing. It's not showing, no? Oh, there it is. Okay. Chair, thank you very much for the time this morning. I would like to firstly say good morning and recognize all protocol in the room, to the chair, to our colleagues in the Minister's office, and also to the honorable members of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity today to present before you. We're grateful for this time, even though it might not all be good news, but we're always grateful that you take your time to visit us and come and listen to whatever challenges we have, and also to think with us. In the room, I really did proudly wanted to bring my team, and I really wanted them to actually present today. But we only have 45 minutes, so they will not present. But I really do want to recognize that I have a real good exco that's sitting around the room. I've got the CFO, Martin, just wave, thank you. And then I've got Sabelo that helps us with strategy at his back, behind him. And then I've got Dr. D, who heads our communication and parliamentary liaison. And then I've got a commercial officer, Tami Tamsang. And then I've got Eureka, who's our chief operating officer. Then next to her, I've got Rukeya, who's our head of compliance. And then just behind them, I've got our chief audit, Wisani. And then next to Wisani, I've got the COSEX office. And I've also got our chief human resources sitting at the back, Nokwanda. Thank you, Nokwanda. And then I've got our COSEC, Nobuhle. Dituso is the second to Nobuhle. She's sitting in the corner. Thank you very much. And our CIO is sitting outside. He's trying to help us with something. So he might join in and out.
Sorry, Chair, you just reminded me that I forgot one of my important duties, and that is to introduce members of the portfolio committee that are before us. In my rush to manage time in our late arrival, I forgot that, and I do apologize. Let me just quickly introduce the members that have joined us in our portfolio committee. On my far right is Honorable Sitole, and then Honorable Bodlani, immediately next to him. Behind Honorable Bodlani is Honorable Matafa, and then we have Honorable Souls here, and then we have Honorable Gelishe, if I got your pronunciation right.
It's Delishe.
Delishe. Yeah, yesterday we attended the last session was on languages, so I think we need to polish up on our languages. Did I miss out any of the members? Of course, Honorable Shongwe, right at the back there behind on the third line. So thank you all and welcome. These are the members of Portfolio Committee. Honorable Velakazi and Honorable Kuseda Diko, the chairperson, are out and they will be joining us shortly. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. So I would start up front with the distribution, because I do think the Chair is correct that I don't think we can talk about the future when there is a problem at hand or an issue at hand that we need to deal with. So let me start with that. And it's just 3 slides, because I think we did take the portfolio committee through the plan, what happened, what did not happen, right? I think the portfolio committee would be interested, where are we now? Are the interventions that we promised making any progress? Are they showing any progress at all? So that's really what I want to focus on. So I won't talk about that. I think the Chair mentioned the variation notice. We know where we're at. We know that we had 11 conditions. The last one is the distribution of these black cards. Really, the condition is to take out the yellow card, because I always explain it in that manner, because there's always a question, why can't you just extend this yellow card to work for longer? We would absolutely love to do that. If that was an option that we had at hand, we would have jumped at that option. But unfortunately, the sub has put a stake in the ground that they will not allow that card to be in the system for longer than post-March. But and maybe controversially mention that it would have been the best option for all of us to maybe allow that card to exist for a further 3 months. But as Post Bank, we don't have that option. But it would have been, because I also received a letter that's asking, why can't you just do that? That would be the best option at all. Because remember, as always, we talk about the project that we had planned 6 months for distribution, but unfortunately, and we take some of it, we take some of that, we could have done things better, by the way. We do not stand here blaming anyone, especially especially the beneficiaries. We do not stand here. We're just saying there was a challenge in the first 3 months that they did not show up in the numbers we would have liked, that would have allowed us then to finish this project over 6 months. That was unfortunately not the case. And we recognize, we understand the beneficiary difficulties, we understand that transportation would have been a difficulty. Therefore, they only showed up within the 3 days, and outside of the 3 days, we really did not see them coming. Up to an extent that we actually had sites that we actually had to close at some areas. But the point is, we had planned that should we hit at least an average of about 25,000 a day, that was the number, I think, 25,000? No, if we should, the plan was 25,000, the original plan. Or 23,600, should we hit that, then we should be able to finish this a day. We should be able to finish this over 6 months, knowing the number of beneficiaries that we had. And so this was the plan. Where are we now? So unfortunately now, we are dealing with a situation where we planned to do something over 6 months. Now we have to do it in 3 months, half the time. Because as our graph will show, I think this graph better, shows what happens in the first few months. I'm trying to, let me maybe get my pointer. Laser pointer. It will show how much we did on average daily. Now remember, the plan was that we wanted to hit around there. We never got to that. We never got to that at all. We tried everything. We tried to put incentives to encourage the beneficiaries to come through, to say you'll qualify, should you come during this time, you'll get 1,000, I think 1,300, 1,500 that we offered. It did not move the needle. And again, this is not to blame beneficiaries, because I think the last time I shared this, the notion was that Post Bank is blaming beneficiaries. We are not. We're just sharing what happened, that we were there. And I think as soon as when we communicated the deadline, beneficiaries showed up and it shot up. That became our daily rate within a space of 2 weeks at the most, 1 week. Because we had beneficiaries, we had people to distribute to. We had not changed much at all. We did not change much at all from the day when we communicated, the first communication of the 20th of Feb, but we managed to do that. Currently, we are moving, we've had days where we've hit 30,000 a day. We have days where we've hit 29, 30,000 a day, which means that the system, what we had planned, would have worked. But again, I want to emphasize the challenge is that we're trying to do it now in 3 months. And it is a challenge. We don't run away from that. We do have challenges. We do have regions where it's literally even more challenging. For instance, the Western Cape is one of our challenge regions. And it's merely the Western Cape, one of the challenges is getting the resources. We had people, we put the adverts there. We had people nationally that applied. We had about 33,000 applications. But to convert, out of those 33,000 applications, just conversion of people was literally getting, I think, at best, we got 15% to convert. But that helped. For instance, when you see here, you'll see where you get people, the region like Gauteng, where you get people, you literally have 91 sites, almost 100 sites, because it was easy to get resources. Remember, our challenge was never where to exist, but the people to man the station. We had arrangements already long time ago with the retailers. We even expanding that arrangement, but the people to man the sites. And I think I'll make that point here with Gauteng. You have sites, you have people, will exist. But the Western Cape, the challenge is that we just are not getting people to apply. It is a phenomenon that I myself don't even understand, because I do know that in South Africa we suffer with unemployment. So we even went back to our spec, is it too strict? But we're only asking for metric plus. And when we say plus, you must have at least worked somewhere, worked with computers and what have you, might have done a diploma, a certificate. We're not asking for a degree at all. So that is one region where we challenge the most. And because now we had to do this project in 6 months, because we also talk about, we had a plan of so many sites. Currently we're sitting at about almost 300 sites, 299. Our plan of sites initially was only what's that number? Okay, I'm not wearing my normal spectacles. Sorry, I can't see it properly. because I'm not wearing my normal spectacles. So maybe let me do that. That's better. So that was the plan that we had initially of sites. Currently, we've added on those sites, but even because we're trying to add capacity because we realized the time is shorter. But even in doing that, it meant sometimes that you had to concentrate where the lines were at. Because when you hear sometimes in the media that Post Bank is still not here, it is not because Post Bank did not plan to be on that side. It's because we had to sometimes take a delay being in a site because we know the numbers on that side, take those resources and put them where the numbers of people and beneficiaries have showed up. That's literally what we're doing. Every day the plan is shifting to try and deal with the matter. We've improved on our communication. We've put in even more money on our communication. We believe it's working even more. And again, this is not us saying we did anything perfectly. There's no way where we can improve. Because I think last time when I presented what I had planned and what is happening, there was almost a misunderstanding as if Post Bank is saying, we didn't do anything wrong. No, that's not the plan. So that's where we're at. And this graph, we always share that, again, here we just wanted to show that as we put our interventions, different interventions, the number is going up. Here, it's us saying we're including a little bit more spas, or how do we do differently in terms of recruiting people, how do we change the arrangement that we have with the retailers. Okay, can we, because again, there was a question, why can't you go to halls? We can't go to halls. The actual variation notice prevents us to use some sites. They have to have some security, some measures in order for us to not fail the very thing that we're trying to be compliant with. So there were limitations around that. There's some questions, why can't you use SAPO? That was also the challenge. SAPO was one of our areas that we wanted to go to from day one. Halls were an area we wanted to go to from day one. But of course, because they're not compliant in terms of what a banking facility should have, we struggled with that. We are using halls in exception cases in fact, even some SAPO branches, but we have to run the risk. We have to assess the risk, and where the risk is acceptable, we have to write that the risk is acceptable, and we will use that hall, and then we have to manage even extra to manage the card in terms of how they kept and the security around that. So there's a lot of effort even going that, but I'm not saying because we believe there's a lot of effort, we don't want to use them. We actually are pushing the rules as far as we can. Hence, we're now starting to add even more halls. But those were the limitations. Chair, that was, I think, again, what's important for us, we've always communicated upfront. I think we've said, if we're at 6 months, we'll finish the 3 million. But because we don't have that time, we do know that it almost is impossible that we will finish all 3 million by the 20th. By the way, the deadline is the 20th, but we don't stop distributing cards on the 20th. We continue distributing cards post the 20th in April. So by the time the next payment run, which is the first Tuesday of every month, in the first Tuesday of April, between the 20th and that first Tuesday, we will be distributing cards. So sometimes you'll hear us then talk about the date not being the 20th to try and claw back even more numbers to reduce whomever doesn't have cards by the payment run of April. The one thing that we want to emphasize is that even if you don't have a yellow. First, I think we wanted to emphasize, we actually released a media statement today to let beneficiaries and be comfortable that your card, your yellow card, you can use it for March payment run, which is next week on Tuesday. So you can use that. But the question, so what happens if you then don't manage to get you this black card? We guarantee people that, for ourselves, it is important to make sure that people have access to their funds. Even if you don't have the black card, you must have access to your funds. And therefore, we're working around the clock to ensure that that is available. So we're now partnering very well with SAPO. They've got over 300 branches, or 500? 543 branches nationally that we're working to avail for people who don't have the yellow card to go and ensure that they fetch their money. And we chose SAPO because people are familiar with that, they know the process. So if you don't have your black card by the payment run of April, then SAPO will be your option to go get your funds. Because for us, what's even more important than the black card for us is that we don't want to leave anyone stranded and not have access to their money. We absolutely appreciate how critical this money is for beneficiaries. It is the most important thing for us. The second thing, of course, we talk about the cardless. The cardless has, because we've also heard questions, what, is it delayed or not delayed? The cardless solution has been a solution that has been there. All our SRDs currently receive their grants on cardless. So it's not a new solution that we're putting forward. But now we're presenting to the beneficiaries to go, please also register for the cardless if you don't get your black card. Why do we offer the cardless? The cardless solves two things for us. If the queues are long, to register for the cardless is quicker. It's quicker because we take 5 data points and then we register on your behalf. But we do want to ensure that we get the right details of the person, because we do not want to mess around with anything that may open any fraud. So we went to make sure, we spent a lot of time now to ensure that that process is tight to register the customer. And you might ask, well, is it not tight for SRDs? Well, for SRDs, we don't register someone for cardless. SASSA gives us the details of that person. And we use the same data points we're going to collect now for the grant beneficiary. For SRDs, SASSA gives us that file, and we pay the person using the SASSA file. But here, it's different. We're collecting the data ourselves, and we just want to make sure there's nothing open. Hence, we want to help the beneficiaries to collect that data. So it helps the queues because it's faster than the card. Should there be any issues, we've always communicated that we do have a challenge with the link with Home Affairs. Sometimes it's intermittent, so sometimes it's not available. We do know we have that issue. Should there be any issues with any system, then the cardless is an option to convert to it very quickly. So that's another thing that the reason why we want to offer the cardless. So those are the solutions that we want to put to ensure people get their grants in April, should you not have your black card. But remember again, we continue to add sites post the 20th. A person can continue to get their card post the 20th, even on the payment day in April. You can move from your payment from the SAPO branch, you can go get your card. We will continue distributing cards until we have reached everyone. Chair, I don't know whether you want me to pause here, perhaps, and then before I move to the strategy. Thanks, Chair.
I think it would be appropriate, honorable members, if I can get a cue from you, since this matter is quite crucial. Maybe, I think if we take the second presentation, we might just get lost in that. So maybe let's allow 15 minutes for some engagement specifically relating to the matter before us, so that we have a clear understanding that this is the emergency, the national emergency, and maybe we can take hands from, on that day. Okay. Can I, is it Honorable Sitole?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Although the presentation actually is demonstrated that we have a wrong road to walk. Why I'm saying this is because, first of all, actually, even to use these facilities, it seems that it shows that there's a challenge in our as a Post Bank, because as members of this portfolio committee, we're supposed to be in the office of the branch of the Post Bank, not to be accommodated in hotel. How much have you paid in this hotel? Because we have to tell us how much have you paid in this hotel. The money that we have paid this hotel sometimes can help somewhere in post office and even Post Bank. And another issue, Honorable Chairperson, the numbers are not saying the same thing. He says the branches are 543, but the report says the branches are 500. They are 500. They say the branches nationally, they are only 500. but your report says your representation says it's 543. If I'm wrong, I will be. So now another thing, Honorable Chairperson, is that we have a challenge of shortage of venues or sites, because in Katlehong, Togoza, Alberton, Katlehong, Togoza, Fusuras, they were using Alberton branch. Just imagine how chaos that thing, that queue was, because I did visit it there. It was very difficult, even to get the cards. So now we have people that are in a crisis in this area. And the other thing, Honorable Chairperson, I concur actually with you, the presenter, when you says, why don't we use continue using the gold card? Because the black card actually is, I don't know what will be the difference between using the old one and the new one, if that one can be actually clarified to us. And then the last one, Honorable Chairperson, is the issue of issuing of this card, because according to you, it's say 2,851,898, if my seeing is correct. But I'm trying to check if this issuing of this card are so slow, and then you promise us that after the deadline on the 20th of March, you're going to continue to issue the cards. By now, do you have any numbers per district? How many numbers have been registered in this? And how many numbers are registering every day per day? If that one can clarify, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Sitole. Honorable Budlani.
Thank you so much, Chair. Chair, perhaps let's start with the issue of the office space. We were at the SAPO offices day before yesterday, and we asked where Post Bank was, because it was my understanding that you were at least operating from their offices. And we were told that you no longer operate from there. And when a chairperson says you are in between offices, how has that impacted this operation? And being in between offices, how many employees does the Post Bank have? And again, how has that affected this operation? And it is my understanding that there is a permanent board. Are they here? Because it would be great to meet. We know Brakaya, if there's any more board members, just so that we know. And the comfort is that Brakaya has been here. And I say Brakaya because we come a long way. He's my homeboy in Ekurhuleni. So where is the board? Is it possible for us to meet them? And I think at the core of this is to ensure that we leave nobody behind. For somebody who's a recipient of a social grant, it gives them financial freedom. It gives them the ability to participate in the economy by just putting that bread on the table, making sure that they do not go to bed hungry. So we really cannot afford to drop the ball. But when government systems do not work, people go to bed hungry. So I do welcome the assurance from yourself, CEO, to say that the process would not mean that grants would not be paid. And I think that is really a message that we should really amplify to South Africans. Because for a man on the street, the issue of the transition and the requirements of the Reserve Bank for the license of the Post Bank really do not mean nothing. Their ability to just access that grant and be able to buy toiletries, buy a packet of Millimore, it's all that matters to them. So they should not be affected by government transition and what we are having now. What I am not understanding, maybe you could just expand on that, CE, is the issue of the 30th of June. At the last meeting, I asked again to say, why was there not a soft deadline? and you know that you are also dealing with yourselves and whatever. And I must admit, I did not hear the answer. I'm not saying you did not provide the answer. I did not hear it. So what is the 30th of June exactly in the bigger scheme of things? And one of the questions that was also asked was, does this process give Post Bank an opportunity to clean up the system? What has been your experience so far? Has there been any ghost beneficiaries that have been kicked out by the system since we last addressed the portfolio committee? And I do, Chair, believe that we should indeed go see for ourselves, because sitting at a hotel and receiving reports, we would be failing in our duty as this portfolio committee if we leave this place and we don't go see for ourselves. So I really would want to advocate for that. What has been the cost of the migration to Post Bank? Because for you to put up sites, to employ the number of people that are doing the administration is a cost to Post Bank. What has been the cost to date? Is this something that had been budgeted for? Because obviously there was not an anticipation that the process would be this long. And a 28% reach so far is really, really not satisfactory. How is the communication with the Department of Social Development? Because they also are raising their frustrations in the media. Are you taking them on board? Are you giving them the comfort they need? Because obviously these are their beneficiaries. They should be able to speak to their beneficiaries, and they will have better access than yourselves. And Chair, let me also thank you for the intervention, CEO, the intervention that you are making in the Western Cape. Like you say, they boast the biggest beneficiaries and the challenges that you have made. So your commitment to be in touch with the Western Cape, Minister Lont really awaits and appreciates your intervention, stepping in personally. Hopefully by the end of next week, we will be reporting differently on the Western Cape. And I think let's not allow other provinces where we see efficiency to fall through the cracks and just focus on what we seem to be a problem province. The question again, what has been a way, is there a mechanisms to still say we were sitting on 2.8 people that we needed, 2.8 million that we needed to migrate? Do we know, I'm repeating the question I asked, do we know if there's people that have fallen off to reduce this number, so you do not strain your processes trying to find people who have gone to private banks? And the issue of that you raise about Home Affairs systems, is it a SITA issue that you cannot access the Home Affairs database? And I am really worried about you saying that SAPO branches were not compliant. And are there any SAPO branches that you are using? I heard you say you endeavor to use SAPO branches, but are there any? And are you saying in the whole of the country there was not a single one that was conducive for this process? Thank you, Chair.
Bodlani. Thank you, Honorable Bodlani. Before I call upon the next member to question, let us welcome to the session Honorable Kusela Sangoni Diko, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, who is seated next to me. And we've also been joined by Honorable Velakazi, who has joined us, also a member of the Portfolio Committee. And maybe just to update the chairperson, as per your request, sorry? Oh yes, sorry, Honorable Makubela has joined us as well. Thank you so much. So we have a full house. I think we've got 9 members of the Portfolio Committee, very well represented here. And as I hand over to the chairperson to proceed, maybe just to update chairperson, we've, as per your request, we've asked to get directly into the emergency situation, that is the migration process. CE has done a presentation, and we're allowing time for engagement on that first, and then we will get into the presentation of the sustainability model. And we've got a rise time at worst to be out here at 11:15, including taking responses onto this and then getting the next presentation. As I hand back to you, I think we're going to behind.
Thank you very much, Honorable Subrathi, for once again, and as always, holding the fort. Honorable Vilagazi and I have been following the proceedings, so thank you also for submitting our apologies. Let me greet the chairperson of the board, the CEO. I know that Honorable Sithole was asking about staff, so we're not sure in terms of staff if you know what that looks like. So maybe we'll get a sense of as you answer the questions. I do want to say that I saw you looking at your watch at that 11:15. When we were discussing this morning, we felt that it's extremely wrong for us to be sitting in air-conditioned offices discussing, you know, theory around this issue. So what we don't get to, I'm sure we can always find another time, but for us, this is really the burning platform. So that is our thinking around it. Honorable Matafa, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Chair, everyone in the room. Going to be very brief. I had 4 questions. I'm left with 3.5. The half is because of the question that Honorable Bozani raised in terms of the cost of the rollout process. I would add to maybe request a clarity in terms of how are these costs funded. So that is the half question. The first one, Chair, as a full question, will be based on the discussions that we would have had before, because it's not the first time we receive a process update in terms of the rollout process. Now, my question is, out of the 500 or 543 point of presence, have we identified the pressure areas? Because I saw there was a huge leap after you announced the deadline. I suspect that that huge leap is not consistent across the board. There will be certain areas where the jump will be higher, but there will be certain areas where probably nothing happens or the trend continues. So in those areas where the jump is high, what interventions have you put in place in order to mitigate those challenges that were presented when the huge leap started? You would remember there was an issue of glitches in the system. There was an issue of long queues. There was an issue of some members of society being turned back, not having received the service. So what mitigation measures have been put in that space? The second one, Chair, is on the home-based mobile services. And I believe that this service is mainly predominantly in the rural areas. Thus far, what are the lessons that have been learned? What are challenges that have been picked up? Because I believe that on a periodic basis, there should be some sort of reporting to say, this is where we started, this is how far we are. We could have been at this point, but these are the challenges. How are you resolving those challenges? Chair, one of the biggest issues, which might be trivial if you do not contextualize it properly, is on the issue of the communication strategy. I'm interested to find out if whether your strategy remains the same from the beginning, or has it been adapted in order to improve the reach, firstly, but secondly, to deal with misinformation, because we have come across areas where there are lies being peddled, there are campaigns to move people away from the Post Bank so that they prefer and choose commercial banks. And there is a deliberate strategy. And I believe from the organization that I'm representing here, our wish is to see the Post Bank succeed. And we should aggressively counter any form of misinformation or an attempt to subvert the efficiency that the Post Bank can give. So I think we need to be able to respond to that strategy. And for me, I will also communicate by SMS and WhatsApp. Are you doing it? Because I believe that every beneficiary has a contact number on the system. As much as we go on TV, we go on community radio stations, we go on mainstream media, are we trying to go the last mile, reach me in my pocket through my phone as a beneficiary of social grants or as someone that is eligible to have a gold card, a black card? Chair, those are my 3.5 questions. Thank you very much.
You, Honorable Matafa, Honorable Makwela. I said, thank you, Honorable Matafa, Honorable Makubela. It's been a long week, I understand.
And a long morning, Chair. Thank you. I'll start with that point. I apologize that I arrived late. You know, I was here and I didn't think we were meeting at a hotel. And I kept saying, it's leading me to a hotel, I'm going somewhere else. But yeah, the issue of offices and the stability in terms of your promises has been asked. I will leave it at that. We'll need a response to that. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CEO and Board Chair, for the presentation. My question, I'll start here. You mentioned that you are now engaging SAPO to increase the footprint of the sites. We were with SAPO 2 days ago. They mentioned nothing about SASSA. We didn't see any of this in their presentation. We even asked specifically where you fit in their business at the moment. I don't remember a response. In that, I'm asking you now, what is your actual relationship with SAPO? Number two, if you are engaging SAPO, they raised the issue of which has been long outstanding, the SLA between the two of you, which governs the relationship and the services that you offer. Is that in place? Three, if that is in place, how much are you paying SAPO for these services that they are offering you? And please, as compared to, do you have contracts with other service providers which are private? And how much do you pay those that are giving you the similar service? There was also a mention that the servicing SASSA, of course, assisting Post Bank is costly for SASSA, and they still outstanding the fee that needs to be paid to SASSA for the separation, the goodwill fee for all the years that they have assisted to build Post Bank. I'm sure you are aware of some costs that were supposed to be reimbursed. So that was mentioned as still outstanding as well. How far is that, and what are the issues between the SLA and the payments to SAPO? What is important for us is that you don't only feed private sector at the expense of our state-owned entities that could be doing the same thing. You not only focus on having professional relationships and market-related payments with others at the expense of the state-owned entities. I would like to then, I'll skip some of the questions here because they've been asked. What lessons, as I conclude, what lessons did you learn this rollout plan? In a previous meeting online, somebody said, we've been here before. We've seen rollouts before, bigger than this. 12 million cards were replaced by Post Bank 2018. Over R1 billion of taxpayers' money was paid. We are now back again, replacing cards in 2025. How much, and we asked in the previous meeting, are we paying for this particular rollout? What have you learned from that previous migration that has assisted to sharpen and make this rollout and migration more efficient, quicker, etc.? Because judging from there, we don't see a lot of improvement. And one of the key things, you are safeguarding the beneficiaries' money. Everybody will be paid. We appreciate that, whether they have a card or not. But you also have an obligation to safeguard the taxpayers' money. And we want to know, with all of these delays and these scope creeps and you replanning, etc., what are the actual costs versus what was planned? Can we get that? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makubela, Honorable Shangwe.
Good morning, Chair, and thank you. Good morning to honorables and officials. Chair, I've been covered by my honorables here around me, but I wanted clarity on one thing. These cards, the extension of their lifespan, what were the reasons for it not to be extended? I need clarity on that one. And then number two, how was it communicated ukuthi abantu must come and change their cards. Are you happy with this system of communication? Because a lot of people didn't even know about this thing until they didn't, where they were not able to access their money. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Shongo, Honorable Vilakazi.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. For me, I'm not going to comment on the presentation because I didn't catch much of it, but just one question. I am battling to see the organization, Post Bank. And I don't, I know Honorable Podlani asked about branches, asked about staff. What is the organization? I'm not even sure. To me, it just seems there's a group of people and they're running a remote operation in all these areas around the country. So perhaps the question speaks to the sustainability of Post Bank post this crisis. So what happens to Post Bank? What's the game plan for Post Bank? Where are we going with it? And what can we expect in a year's time to see happening with Post Bank? Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Vilakazi. Honorable Salt.
Thank you so much, Chair. And greetings to everyone. CEO, I see on slide 98, you have ongoing engagement with PA and FSCA. I just want to apologize and say sorry to you on behalf of my party president and myself that PA stands for Prudential Authority and not Patriotic Alliance. We would have helped you, we would have helped you with the engagement. On a more serious note, CEO, under key risks and mitigation, you say capital adequacy compliance, and then mitigation, it's very narrow in terms of the explanation. Regulatory changes, and then that ongoing engagement. Are you saying that there are not adequate funding for compliance, and you're addressing that? If so, kindly expound on how you're actually addressing that. And then securing funding for BCC and operational readiness. Are you saying that there are no funding for BCC and operational readiness? If so, kindly expound on that. And also, sound check, DJ. And also, and also just kindly expound on how does this how will this affect the smooth rollout of the change or the switch as you have explained during your presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Elisha.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to you, my colleagues and everyone in the room this morning. Chairperson, I think I would like to ask you, CEO, right? Why is it that Post Bank is not investing or prioritizing in-house IT capabilities? And I ask this because I know there was there's a previous card fraud incident that happened, I think 2022, 2023. And I just want to find out, don't you think that should be a priority? Like, why are you not prioritizing IT in-house capabilities? And maybe another question, Chairperson, when we met with the BRTs, right, they told us that Post Bank, I hope I'm remembering this correctly, they told us that, look, Post Bank was making a loss of 30 Rand per transaction. So I wanted to understand if maybe the social mandate of the Post Bank is clashing with the profitability, right? And I ask this because I want to understand if the state will always have to subsidize the losses, and maybe how we will have to explain, how you will have to explain this to the taxpayers. And my understanding again of the Post Bank, is that it should be, and I think that's probably like the objective you have as well, that it should be the bank of choice. But how are you going to achieve this if you keep losing your customer base to even the likes of Capitec? Because I think, you know, they eating and winning from the customer base that you want to attract. And maybe the second last one is which steps or what steps are you taking to make sure that you accelerate this card replacement that is happening? And maybe, like, will you meet the deadlines? Like, how are you going to make sure or ensure that you meet the deadlines? And maybe the last one, Chair, would be, is there any strategy to address the low revenue per customer without like raising the fees, so that you ensure their affordability? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Alicia. Honorable Subrati.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my first question would be, one of the challenges that brought about this migration and gave rise to this migration was, from my understanding, was the gold cards were compromised. There was a security compromise. And that is at the bedrock, and that is the seed, and that gave rise to this. So my question is, as we migrate, what are the checks and balances in place to ensure that that is not recurring in terms of ghost applications being received, in terms of that entire black card being compromised? So is there an oversight by some body of sort? Because that's crucial. Otherwise we will be creating the problem again. So that's, for me, is very important to understand the entire process to ensure that the cards being issued are not compromised. And as one of my colleagues had mentioned, that it throws out the ghost beneficiaries, etc. The second question would be, and I think you have addressed this, or did you say you released a press release? When will our people be informed of the options to collect cash after the 20th of March? You know, what's your, if you inform them now, you might slow the pace down. I think you did mention you don't want to. So at what point, what is your game plan to give comfort to our people? At what stage you think you will give that out? In order to increase, have we increased hours at sites? Are we working through weekends? So that'd be a next question. And have we explained to South Africans why we're doing this huge migration? Gati, the issue of you have been compromised, because, you know, if someone knows that, you know what, there could be someone who's got my, if you know you're someone sitting with your ID number or ID book, you're going to act to it. So an informed population will be a responsible and reactive population. Have they been informed that these cards, the gold cards, have been compromised? Therefore, we need you to migrate. I think if they are educated about the importance, then I think the response, they would take it far more seriously. One of the major concerns to us, and, you know, even from the political party I come from, is the preservation of the state bank. And we want to ensure that the state asset of Post Bank is preserved, because it is one of those, in fact, it is the only access that the most rural of our people, and we say this because we traveled in Eastern Cape in September last year on oversight, and we've seen, we went through villages, and the only form of, some form of formal connection to banking would be the post office, and in it was the Post Bank. And note I used the term was. So my question around that is, what are we doing to make sure that the migration takes place to Post Bank and not to others? Because for us, as a state-owned entity, it's crucially important we maintain critical mass for the survival of Post Bank after the migration. Having said that, and maybe whilst we were on the journey of villages, we found that the tribal leaders and the traditional authorities plays a very crucial role in connecting us, because when we went there to do our house visits, etc., we had to go to the tribal leader. He received us, and with his permission, he allowed us to go and visit various. Now, has the Post Bank reached out to our the most rural areas, and engaged tribal and traditional leaders? And even if we have not, I'm saying it's not too late. There are many, many areas where we have beneficiaries, and they look up to the tribal leaders, and I think they can open up opportunities for us to actually reach out to our recipients. In our last engagement, we spoke about the issues of, maybe, I don't know whether it's a human right issue, issues of water, sanitation, shelter. In fact, whilst you were standing there, I felt bad because whilst I was chairing, maybe I didn't expect our engagement would be so deep. I don't know whether you want to take a seat, but that was a question that came to my mind. You know, I can offer you a seat because we have chairs here, but what's going to happen to our people who are standing in all those queues? What is going to happen to them? I can offer you water here. And those were the thoughts that came to my mind as I was going to take the mic and tell you to take a seat, please. What is the condition of our people on the ground at the moment? Since our last engagement, it did come up, so I would like to get a sense on that there. It was very disappointing, and I think this conversation, maybe we need to have it out of this session here. I think honorable members have spoken about it, and I've really emphasized the issue of the relationship between SAPO and Post Bank. And what we gathered, that there has been a strained relationship for a while now in our engagement with at SAPO. And at some stage we need to have a deeper conversation, because interoperability of state-owned entities, and particularly here where there are synergies, it cannot be something that we can disregard. It's something that as a committee, portfolio committee, we want to see a closer working relationship. So maybe it's a conversation we need to have, a deeper conversation outside this segment. And that's the status of, what's the status of the relationship with SAPO? And we've reached out to tribal and traditional leaders. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Subrathi. I was worried that you are going to go up to that 11:15 yourself there for a minute. Chairperson, CEO of the Post Bank, maybe to start on a point that Honorable Subrathi raised, the multiple channels, or maybe let me start here. I think that you know that our support for the Post Bank and this process has been unparalleled. And obviously we are getting extremely nervous with the more we are getting reports on the ground. Just this morning I was on a radio station where they called the process shambolic. And this is why we want to get a sense, and this is why we want to release you to go and do your work. Now, one of the things that we have been saying is an assurance that we've been given by yourselves, and you repeated it in the presentation, or the chair did, that nobody will not get their grant. Now, we're speaking on broad terms. Can you say, because you have people who are also watching this briefing, exactly how are they then going to get their grant? You speak about digital channels, you speak about multi-channels. If Dingu Makulu, who has no transport to go and swap my card, I'm sitting in Ogolweni in the Eastern Cape, how am I going to get my money at the end of the month? Is it the end of the month tomorrow? Because I've not been able to swap the card. So if we could just get that as clear as it possibly can be. But also, I have a question around the training of your staff. One of the things that was raised also in our interaction with the people is that sometimes you get to these retailers and the staff literally has no idea how to even do this thing, you know. There's also instances, and you will please just give me a sense of how feasible this is, where it takes 4 hours to print 12 cards. Now, you can imagine the queues of people that are sitting there. If you've got 30 people, 40 people there, during the course of the day, you only have 12 cards printed. What is the problem with that, and what are you doing about it? Then on the mobile sites, how many units do you have? How are they deployed? And how are people, it can't be a CEO that because we know you, we can say, no, a unit is needed in this area. What is the deployment schedule? Does everybody who's supposed to know that these are the number of mobile units we have, this is when they're going to be going into these areas, and what the data is telling you in terms of that deployment? Can you give us a sense of how that is working for us to just get a level of comfort? But I think that, I think most of the questions have been answered. So the issue of the home visits, and then this Department of Social Development, maybe if you can also give us a sense of how the two of you are working together now since our last meeting, but they had very sharply raised this issue of the dignity of the beneficiaries during this process. So just an update on what's happening in that regard. Thank you, ma'am. Over to you. I am so worried I'm being rude. I see there's a number of people in the room. Unfortunately, I couldn't walk in and check the faces. So I do see the leadership of the DCDT. Let me also just greet and welcome everybody else who's here. Over to you, CEO Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Let me take off my glasses because funny enough I see better because I broke my real glasses. So thank you very much, Chair, and the honourable members for the questions. I'm going to try and tackle all of them. There is one or two I'm probably going to throw to the DDG, and then he can take them. So there's one around the office, and I'll deal with this office-SAPO relationship because I think it's all holistic. And the SAPO, are they running our operations at a loss? Do we pay SAPO less than the retailers? So let's talk about the SAPO. So I joined Post Bank in July 2023, and one of the first things I did was to enforce that everyone comes to the office every day. The EXCO did not necessarily like me because we were working in the Pretoria offices as at the time, I don't think they probably were not necessarily legal to work in. I'm trying to be very cautious of what words I'm using because we know the challenges that SAPO had. But we worked in them. They didn't have aircons, the cleaning, toiletry, the dustbins were going up, but we worked in them. We showed up every day. It happened. Unfortunately, we were thrown out. That's the long and short of it. We were told to vacate the premises by the SAPO BRPs. We did not ask to vacate. We were told to vacate. We were told to vacate in a space. Literally, we were given short notice, 2 days, 3 days. I remember sitting in my PA asking, where do we store the things? We ran around trying to find storage for even our files. That is the long and short of it. That is why we did not vacate the offices. We were told because SAPO had changed, the BRPs called that the SAPO staff, all staff must come to the office, and therefore the notification we got is that they need the space because all their staff is coming back to the office. They're no longer going to work hybrid. That's the long and short of it. I hope that answers that one. The relationship with SAPO, we've always worked with SAPO and had a good relationship. I think where the challenge became was when we started working with the BRPs. I think the first challenge came over the 4.2 billion because we're the biggest creditor for SAPO. In terms of how we were engaged, in terms of the settlement, we were paid 12 cents to the rand. We know there were some people that were paid 18 cents to the rand. And we challenged that. We challenged as to why other people are being paid 18 cents to the rand, whereas we're getting paid 12 cents to the rand. That's the first challenge we had. The second challenge, when we eventually accepted the 12 cents to the rand, then they owed us 522 million, because that's what we literally got out of the 4.2. And then SAPO BRPs decided to offset that, even though the court had put in that they must pay us the 522. They decided to offset that and deduct some other money. We only got half of that. To an extent, now we have taken them through an arbitration because the BRP process allows for that. That's the second issue, contentious issue. The third one we had was around The fees, when I'm surprised to hear today when they say they're not making money out of Post Bank. One of the things that the BRPs demanded was that because we service SASSA, we use their channels. We still, by the way, we still use the SAPO channels for some of our customers. There are customers who were supposed to have never had the yellow card, had another banking account with us, which we call core customers, but they earn a grant from SASSA, and therefore we need to service them. So we use branches. We use them for some of the DOT because we do almost the similar thing for the Department of Transport for the Eastern Cape, and we use the SAPO branches. The BRPs decided that what SASSA pays us to give the service, they're going to take the whole amount. These are the contentious issues we had. And the argument they used for that was that, no, well, guess what? There was a contract that we had, SAPO had with SASSA. We said, of course, the SASSA contract started with SAPO, but it was seeded. By the way, what service do? You don't do the full service of providing disbursement. You are a service provider to us. We have a contract with you for you to service us, and we pay as we pay any retailer for you to service us. But you cannot claim the full amount that SASSA, but they did. They did. So when you ask what contentious issues we have with the BRPs, not SAPO, with the BRPs, those are the issues. And I'm just naming 3. I'll talk about the SLAs. We've been discussing the SLAs. That's the reason I brought the team today, because some stuff I might not remember, so I'm going to throw to them. We've been negotiating SLAs. Remember now, they're service provider to us. The same way we go, the BRPs said to us, you will take the SLA as it is. We will take no accountability. If anything happens, we will take no accountability. You will take it as it is. We said that's not how SLA goes. SLA is that we sit around the table, you say you'll provide the service, this is what we require from you. We understand where you are at, and therefore, of course, we can't require what we require from a retailer, but it cannot be that. And when we couldn't come to that agreement and argue with them, they threatened to close. They actually did. They stopped paying beneficiaries. A beneficiary will go to a branch. They said, no, we will not. There was another question that around, can't we use the SAPO branches in terms of the distribution? I think I touched on this. They were our first choice. I think even when we presented our first choice in this. But if you, the license that we have is the same. We don't have a different license to any other bank, the license to distribute cards. Every bank is required to look like this, to have this security, to do this. By the way, the variation notice that we have is because Post Bank did not follow the rules for this license. And therefore SAP said, because you're not following the rules, we are going to take this license. We're going to give you this time to resolve the issues. And one of those issues was the fact how we handle customer information, which is called PCI DSS, which my team knows. I always forget what it stands for, but I know what it means. But it's a protection, it's a card protection. So you're required to keep it in the set. And when we talk about the compromise, it's because we did not comply to that as Post Bank. We didn't do that. Therefore, compromise the information of the yellow card, and which ended up here. Therefore, we had to now follow the rules to retain this license. And we talk about the future of Post Bank. If you lose this license for Post Bank, it's a big loss. Because how do you go then back to SAP and say, give me a bigger license? Because this one only gives you opportunity to just distribute cards, nothing else. To be part of the payment system. How do you go to them and go, give me a better license for commercial license? Because you failed this little license. So that has been the challenge. Like I said, we do use some SAPO branches, a few, where we know that we do, but we have to put extra, because one of the things I said, where do you keep the card? You're required to keep it in a safe, you're required to have cameras, you're required to have physical security, you're required to have a secure network, so that no one can interfere with that. And we engaged, by the way, we did engage SAPO on this, and we understand they said we don't have the money to fulfill all these requirements that you're asking. That's why we're not using the branches. That's been the challenge as well with halls, by the way. Not because we do not want them, but it was Either do we compromise the license again? Do we compromise the cards, the information? And again, maybe let me touch, because there was also a question, why are you changing the cards? What's the benefit? It's two things. The simple thing, yes, there was a compromise, but cards expire. I think all of us, our cards have an expiry date. These cards expired 3 years ago, because I think there was a question, can you extend? We've gone to Visa twice already to ask to extend. Please allow us to use them post the expiry date. To an extent, Visa said, we will not allow you any. In fact, I think we've gone 3 times. Because I've gone twice since I've been here, and my predecessor went once. And Visa said, no more. Because the thing is, as a bank, you work, your card works in the payment system, and therefore, if you have a card that is not secure, you're compromising the whole South African banking system. And I think, I must admit, I think the Visa has worked very well with us. I would not even blame them. They really supported us. So that's the context around why we're changing cards. And again, I think there was a question around, have we told beneficiaries their cards are not compromised? Now, this is a bit technical, but the card itself is still secure. That's why Visa will allow you to use it. But the problem of the compromise was where and how Post Bank keeps this information. Can someone have access to this information? Now, no one has had access to the information, but the way we used to keep it was not secure enough that if someone who's clever could not have access to that information. So I hope that explains it. So the card is secure. That's why Visa can say you can still use it, because even when you apply to Visa for a waiver, they go and check. Is it secure? Is it compromised? But the problem, hence the variation notice, is that how we kept in our system, and again, there was a question, are we doing everything on our systems? We have done a lot on our systems. We have not compromised our systems. I think the variation was a blessing in disguise as well, because it forced us to upgrade our systems. We have upgraded our systems so much. Our system are compatible with any other bank, especially the system that allows us to issue cards. Is there more to do? There's absolutely more to do. And I think there's one thing that perhaps the story that we never tell, which I always, even my previous bosses used to say, my biggest fault is that when I get into a position, I just go and work. I never tell the story of what I really found and how bad it looks. Let me just say, my team and I, we always say we're not turning around a bank, we're building a bank. There's a reason why we use that term. Because when you're turning around something, there's something to turn. There's something to start with. But when you're building almost from scratch. I personally, who loves banking, has worked in banking for years, I sometimes look at the bank and go, I'm not sure how they operated. I'm not sure what they called a bank here. That's what we're building. And then the funding, I think the question came, because it is within that context, we've went to Treasury twice to ask for funding. Had we not lost the 4.2 billion, we would not need funding. That's what actually we wanted to present to you, the impact of the 4.2 billion to Post Bank. Someone asked our capital adequacy. Our capital adequacy before I joined was above the requirement of 27.3%. It was almost on 35%. Now we're almost trading towards a negative. And the only impact to that was losing 4.2 billion. Not because we did anything operationally wrong as Post Bank. And I think, are we improving? Are we on a journey? I think the fact that we just came out of a disclaimer, again, talks, because remember, AG, when they come to you, they don't only monitor how you're doing your financials, they only monitor your IT systems and your controls and how you're doing. Post Bank just came out of a disclaimer. Post Bank has been a bank that has been on disclaimer for 3 years. My team and I, we just took out Post Bank out of a disclaimer. Yes, we have a qualified. We would have loved to go unqualified, but I think that shows the amount of work we're doing to build this bank. Post Bank has not had an executive team for almost 9 years. They have not had a CEO. They had an acting CEO for more than 9 years. For the first time, we almost have a full ExCo, professionals who come from private bank, who proudly join this bank because they love what they do and they believe in the mission of a state bank. People who do not join this bank because we lessen the requirements, who qualified, who don't sleep. I mean, my CIO and I did not sleep even last night because we're solving issues on the ground. Has this project been difficult? Absolutely. And I'll tell you, because we asked of the budget, how are we doing on the budget? We managing this project, we had to go to board to say we need this project, we need this amount of money. Yes, I don't have the numbers, happy to provide the numbers where we're at now. I don't have them now off by heart, but we did ask for a project. We even went to Treasury to ask money for this project. That's how much planning we did, because we understood what it means. I think there's also sometimes maybe we forget, because changing a card is the simplest thing. There's nothing complicated about changing a card. It's literally simple. But the challenge with Post Bank, we do not have any existence regionally. We never had. We don't have anything. We sat in Pretoria and Bloemfontein. We had a bank that had our offices. Not sure how it worked. Never had any regional presence, nothing. In 6 months, my team and I put those regional offices. They may not look like what an ideal branch may look, but that's what we had to put within a space of 3 months. We had to put some form of a bank so that the customer can at least reach us. It was not an easy task. We had to hire over 1,000 people to actually do this job because we didn't have them. What are the other challenges in Post Bank? Capacity in Post Bank is a challenge. Post Bank has an approved structure that's almost 500. We're sitting at almost probably less than that, less than half of that. Now, it's not only the capacity in terms of numbers, but capacity in terms of skills in Post Bank. Remember, Post Bank started from post office. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But we took post office people to run a bank. Now, this is not to criticize. This is just a fact. I think all of us, when you hire someone, you ask according to the job and what you need and the spec of the job and the experience that we have. Now, I have a brilliant staff from Pretoria to the staff that we have who have gone over. And I have people who do not sleep at home because they're working regionally, they're managing regions because we have people who are not doing what they were hired to do. They're running this project. So this is not to criticize the staff. But I'm saying, for instance, our IT does not have the full capabilities that they should have. To an extent now, we are planning to go to board now with a new structure. As now we have a team, we finalized the structure. We're supposed to actually to present that to board, I think, in Feb. And we paused that. We said, this distribution is priority. Everyone, hands on deck, this distribution is priority. I just wanted to give that context about Post Bank, that it is not, it's not, it still has a long way to be a proper bank, but I'm very proud of the work that we've done so far. Some questions. Difference between black card. I think I've explained the difference between the black card and the new card is that it is more secure. The black card is much more secure. It works better because remember your card needs to work with ATMs. Now banks upgrade their ATMs, they upgrade their POS machines. Therefore, you need to upgrade your card as the systems upgrade, so that it's compatible, so that you don't go to an ATM and the ATM throws your card out. That's the one fundamental thing. But I also think, for us, by the way, it was also important how the card looks. We sat and had meetings about how the card looks because we wanted a card that gives dignity to the person. If you see the yellow card, it's been there for years. It's falling apart. You can't even see. And therefore, that was also important for us. Offices, how is this affecting us in terms of delivering this project? I think it probably did. Had we been in one office, we probably would have done better. We probably would have done better. For instance, now we've opened a war room. We forced the team, we're sitting in one room because you make quick decisions. You don't have to sit a meeting, you can ask a person here, decision is made quick, you change decisions because we had to change so many decisions so many times. But I'm still very proud of how the team has done even with that. But if we had an office, by the way, we went on tender, Sabel, I think 3 times or 4 times. 4 times. Post Bank went to tender for offices 4 times. When I joined, I asked, no, guys, can we get to the root cause? Why are people not responding? And I think we think one of the major issues, because the old tenders were still being advertised over under SAPO. So I think people who said, SAPO is going under rescue. So we changed, we opened our own site as Post Bank with the National Treasury, and it helped. We now have gone so far our tender. We're looking at a building in Midrand, and we chose Midrand because we wanted to accommodate everyone, from whether you're from Pretoria or from the other side, Central. So I think hopefully in the next 3 months we should have moved, but we do not have offices. So we did, by the way, we did try and get even to DCT, but we could not accommodate the numbers because we also don't like sitting in hotels. We don't want to waste money, but we couldn't accommodate the numbers. And DCT did try to help us, but the numbers would not fit in the boardroom that was planned. Other questions? The cost of the budget. How is our relationship with social development in SASSA? Let me just put it this way. We have a very healthy relationship with SASSA now, because that is important to say now with the new leadership. Was it always like that? No, it wasn't like that. Because we do know the previous leadership, they did not like I said, I think in the previous portfolio committee, every month we received a letter from their lawyers that says, we want to separate part. We will even ask them why. We've guaranteed one thing, we will create stability. We have not had glitches. We really have not had glitches. And for me, because I remember the embarrassment of September 2023, that was a proper embarrassment. But since then, we have never not paid our beneficiaries because we invested in our IT. Do we have some challenges now with IT? Yes, the Department of Home Affairs link, which we are forced to do because we have to verify the person with the fingerprint. It is intermittent. So the question was asked, was it SETA, is it Home Affairs? We actually now want to have a meeting with SETA as well and ask, where is this? We've solved everything we can solve on our side. We've changed, we've upgraded. It improved, but it's still intermittent. So that is some work that we want to do. In fact, our DM even had a meeting with the DM in Home Affairs, because we even escalated to say, can someone help us? So now we're going to start with SETA. I think next week we're meeting SETA, and then we're going to try and figure out ways of, because we've solved everything that we think could have been us, and yet it's still intermittent. It is still a challenge. How many people have moved to other banks? If you notice, if you remember, when we started, we were reporting 3 million numbers. We've changed that because we received this question in the last portfolio committee. That's why we updated it. So that's how much the number reduced by. Now, the question will always be, did it reduce because of this, or did it not? Because it has been reducing, we can only be honest. When I joined the bank, Post Bank had about close to 5 million customers, by the way. SASSA did a verification of customers. Because remember, we receive a file every month from SASSA says, this is you must pay, this is how much you must pay, and we don't mess with that file. They did an assessment of their data to check for ghosts, beneficiaries and what have you, and their number reduced. So we ended up we lost over 2 million because of that process. Yes. Because they were doing a cleanup of their data. And everyone, by the way, lost across, whether it was Capitec and everyone lost, all of us lost across. So that's why we're sitting at 3, which has been fairly stable, but it has been reducing. It has been reducing to an extent that we're trying. Our chief commercial obsession is to try and figure out where is this, why are we not using the, how can we keep and retain that number? I think, Chair, you asked, can I just clarify, I'll start with the 30th June and then clarify the post-March. So 30th June, and perhaps we shouldn't actually stop talking about it because it might confuse people, because I think, Shem, you are asking this for the second time. The only reason we communicated 30th June was saying, by 30, we will provide the service of you going to SAPO post-March, but it will stop on the 30th of June because it's a costly service to pay beneficiaries through SAPO. Firstly, it's not safe for the beneficiary. The money, because we have to send money with the CIT company. Our biggest cost in the bank with this, distribution was CIT cost. we spent over 24 million a month on CIT cost. And we were not distributing to this number of customers, by the way. It was a smaller number. So that was the first thing that we tried to manage. But second thing, I think the most important thing for us was the customer experience. People were sleeping at SAPO branches. Sometimes the CIT company will be late. They still don't get their money. Or they'll run out of money because there was no way to determine how many people are going to show up. There was no way. Because sometimes Granny will decide, let me not use, because I was this side of town, there's a branch, let me go get paid there. Yes, you verify them, but the number today could be that you're paying 50 people, tomorrow could be that you're paying 60 people. So you would only use the past to determine and predict how many people are going to show up. Then your predictions are wrong, people are standing there, they have to go back home, they did not get paid. But the amount of robberies and at gunpoint that we saw. And the fourth biggest thing that was a challenge was fraud. Since we stopped this, our fraud has reduced drastically. Because the money was disappearing. The money was just disappearing. So the SAPO branch has always been a challenge in that sense. And I think this is why a SAP insists on some measures. If you're going to say, I'm going to do these activities. There has to be a system of verification. There has to be a way of accounting for your money. The controls are important. There's security. Because some of the money that we lost was not because was not because the system was not there, but we'll get feedback that unfortunately we had to do it offline because the landlord switched off the electricity because we did not pay. Those are some of the things we dealt with. I think there was a question around fraud. Our fraud has drastically reduced by 80% year on year. 80% year on year. Because we've put measures to manage our fraud. We've hired, and again, there was someone who says, is there someone who overlooks? Yes, we do actually have a company that monitors our transactions and what happens. So we have an oversight over us. Because some of the fraud that we've had been collusion internally. So we're not necessarily at a stage to trust completely to bring this capability internally. That's why we're still keeping it externally. That's the only reason we're still keeping it externally. Besides the fact that we don't have skills, we're hiring, but from my personal perspective, it's because I don't think we're there yet. So that's some of the answers. I think I've answered most of them. The card lifespan, I think I've talked about that. Why was it not extended? We've extended it 3 times, but again, remember, it's not only now the card, there's also the variation notice. The variation notice says, I don't want to see the yellow card in the payment system post-March. That's actually, now Visa maybe Visa gave us an extension and say you can use it, let's say, up until June. But the sub said, I don't want that yellow card in the system post-March, even if Visa had given us a further extension. As per the variation notice. I hope, Chair, have we increased the hours on sites? Yes, we started a long time ago to increase the hours on sites. We align with the retailers, we work on weekends, we work overtime where we can. We close at 7 if the retailer closes at 7. So we've done that. Traditional leaders, actually, if there's one thing that SASSA helped us with was that they aligned us with traditional leaders. And there was another question, how do these mobile units work? So we've aligned now with SASSA because SASSA every month, so we use the mobile units in 3 ways. One, we've aligned with SASSA in terms of when they do the activations every month, we'll send a mobile because they do. SASSA has something that they do every month. They'll call all banks, and then all banks must come and station somewhere and then help people open cards. We were not part of that process before, by the way. We were never invited to do that. And we understand because we did not have a new card to distribute. Now that we have, SASSA is inviting us. So we use the mobile units like that. We use the mobile units where it is in the most remote areas where we can't get to. Do we have enough? No, we don't have enough mobile units, but we're building on them. And again, remember, I said we did go to National Treasury to ask money to do this project, because we knew how much this is going to cost. Because you're literally opening up a new bank nationally in a space of 3 months. You're opening branches in a space, you may have to train people. We've taken the feedback, Chair, that some of them are not necessarily trained, we'll follow up. We really, hence for us, we actually even have a debate, do we reduce the 10 plus? We ended up saying, because we want people who are able to manage what they're dealing with, but I'm sure there's some of them who might not necessarily be there. We take that feedback, Chair. There was the communication, how we are changing our communication. We're being so dynamic with our communication. The unfortunate thing, have you used SMS and WhatsApp? Post Bank does not have data of customers. We don't. Has never been kept by the bank. Your phone number and that data, Post Bank does not have it. We are starting to keep it now. With this process, one of the things we said is important is to ensure that we have numbers. Did we try alternatives to get the data? We did. We went to the IEC and they worked with us. We compared our information that we have of our beneficiaries versus their data. And we did find a small amount, but I don't even think it was 10% of customers that we have numbers. And we do send SMSs to those customers that we have. But unfortunately, most of our comms has to be pushed. We use the media, we use local radio stations, community radio stations, the traditional leaders, and the broader radio stations. I think that's it, Chair. If I'm forgetting any, I wrote them down, but if I replied to the Chair, the 12 cards per 4 hours, I'm sure it happened, but if it did happen, there's 2 things that challenged us now. The small load shedding that we had, it did challenge us. Because sometimes we look at a boxer does not necessarily have a backup plan because it's not a big pick and pay retailer. It doesn't have that, so it was shut down. But most of it sometimes has been the challenges around the DHA link. That really is the core of it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, CEO.
There was, sorry, Chair, there was 2 questions I wanted to give to the DDG, the board. And the other question was, SAPO says we owe them money. We don't owe SAPO money. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. But the board one, the DDG can.
DDG Shilembe? I was actually going to ask, maybe even before DDG Shilembe responds, can you please introduce your executive team to us? Oh, you did before we arrived. My apologies. DDG Shilembe?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning to you and good morning to the honorable members. The question that was asked was whether the board of Post Bank is present in this meeting. Chairperson, the cabinet has concurred to the minister's proposal for the board, but the board has not been inaugurated yet. We usually await for the minutes of the cabinet in case there are conditionalities or any other requirements that we need to fulfill before we send the communication to the appointed board members. That is going to happen as soon as we receive the minutes, Chairperson. With respect to the debt that SAPO says it's owed to Post Bank relating to the goodwill or the equity they built into Post Bank before Post Bank was separated. This is a matter that resides actually with the department, and I am amazed if SAPO is demanding this payment from the Post Bank, because at the separation of the Post Bank from SAPO, it was an undertaking made by Treasury that any recapitalization required by the two entities will have to be done through the budget process. They acknowledged that a post office had contributed in terms of goodwill in creating Post Bank to where it is or to where it was at separation. But to date, they have not committed to funding the two organizations to their full requirement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DDG. There was somebody else you wanted to answer something else? Was that it? Okay. CEO, thank you. Thank you. The reason I had actually wanted to see your executive team was because I think I wanted to thank everybody collectively. I was accused, I think, by Honorable Sols the other day of supporting SABC, and he says, yeah, no, it's because it's women. It's not because it's women, Honorable Sols. I cannot imagine the amount of work that has had to be put in to get us to where we are now. And I think let's give them a round of applause. And as we do that, we are saying, Khubani, you are not yet where you need to be. Honorable Vilagazi will be the first one to say to you, we're not going to support you and push for you to get business just because you're a state entity. You have to also prove your mettle in terms of what you're doing. So maybe let's pause it here, because if I were to open, there would be a flood. But because I am the chair, I have the latitude to say, knowing what you know now, and also looking at the experiences of other banks like Time Bank and so forth, who don't have physical presence. When, I don't even want to say if, when you have to do something of this nature again, what are you going to do differently? What have you learned? And I know you didn't get to present your sustainability strategy to us, but in a nutshell, before the end of, can you promise us that before the end of our term, we won't be sitting with what they called on radio today a shambolic process and bank? So where are we going?
Chair, I think we can promise that we will not be sitting with the shambolic. Firstly, I think the first thing that happened with this project that was unfortunate is that because no bank replaces all cards all at the same time. My card and your card, even if we bank at the same bank, will never have the same expiry date. So we made sure we never have such a thing. We staggered the cards in the future, the expiry date, the cards that we're issuing. I think the second thing is the fact that we're prioritizing where we sit. It is a priority for us. But bringing proper executives in the team was my priority, because you can't do this alone. And now they're building the team below them. We can see the green shoots. I think for us, even the audit is a green shoot. Because audit, by the way, AG, they are represented. As much as they audited Post Bank since it's separated from Post Office, they forced us to audit the Post Bank since 5 years back. So the results of what you're seeing now is us correcting 5 years back, even though there were years. And I share that because I want to share the commitment of this team. And again, we said, when we had the glitch in September 2023, we said it will never happen. And we kept that promise. It will never happen. I'm just saying, there's still challenges. There's still suppliers who want to take advantage of Post Bank every day because they can't seem to want to accept the change that fraud is no longer a Post Bank culture. We're fighting them. They threaten with everything that they have. We're fighting. We're going to court with them. But when we talk about us, our strategy is not only going to be digital because we're mindful of the customers we have. Our strategy, we will have mobile banks, which is probably going to be the new in South Africa. I know other banks have tried it. They really did not invest in it. We want mobile banks. We want to offer different products. We don't want to offer the same loan as a loan because why then do we exist if it's the same qualification? At the same time, we're not looking to indebt people because I think people in radio, every time we say this, they say, oh, Post Bank is looking to increase indebtedness. No, there are creative ways you can ensure that people qualify for loans, qualify for what they need without indebting them. Our strategy is really creating products that meet the customer needs. That's all. That's the first thing. The second thing, ensuring people have access to banking. Let them have the choice to banking. Because when you talk about financial conclusion, again, it's a debate, which should never be, because they say 97% of adult South Africans have a bank. Well, if I'm using my bank just to transition my money on payday and then I take it on payday, that's not banking. That's not banking. That's what Post Bank wants to offer. We also want, I think one of our biggest hindrances now, even with this current customer, we really want to do more for the beneficiaries. Our beneficiaries are not getting their worth. Because firstly, the MSA that we have with SASSA does not allow us to do that. It actually goes against financial inclusion. The MSA says that card will only do one thing and one thing only. It will get the SASSA grant and take it out, you can't do anything. So we can't even offer them, and I always make this example, a reward system. Because our beneficiaries go to these retailers, they get nothing for giving them feet and giving them money. Mine is that we give business to the retailers, but we get nothing for our customer. And I always say a simple thing that during that 3-day payment, retailers should be offering a grocery that's worth 600 for 500 rand. Just offer it as long as you have a Post Bank card, which is what you and I have. My card, if I go to somewhere else, some cards will go, if you go to this garage, you get points. Our beneficiaries are not allowed to have that because the MSA says you can't. Our beneficiaries are going and buying funeral covers that are not thinking about who they are. Our MSA says we can't even sell that to our beneficiary. So for us, it's that. But also to help government, I think the one thing that Post Bank prides itself on is that the reason we go to the likes of Department of Transport is to say, we can disperse money for you in a way that is auditable to reduce fraud. That's what we do for SASSA. That's what we offer for SASSA. It reduces fraud because you have to verify the person, you have to know who they are, you ensure the right money goes to the right person, and you can audit that process. That's really what we want to offer to government, Che. But broader to government, but for the customer, to give them the products that they're not qualifying for. One of the reasons we struggle in this distribution, by the way, one of the biggest challenge, because I know that some people compare us to other banks, we struggle because we go where no bank goes. That's why we're struggling with distribution. But we proudly do that. So we're trying to be in Katlehong, in every way, but also the limitation is how much money do we have. So we have to be within a radius. We can't be everywhere. But we try to say within a 30-kilometer radius. At least the customer should not travel more than 30 kilometers. Again, simply because we can't be everywhere, but we try to be everywhere, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank
you, CEO. That was, thank you. So what we're going to do, firstly, we need to reschedule, CEO, the sustainability plan, because I think only once the portfolio committee understands what it is that you're trying to do, then do we know what we are exercising oversight of in terms of delivery. So we will reschedule that. We are also politely declining your arranged visits at the sites that you had chosen. And we will be going to our own sites. I have received the update that we are going to 3 sites. In Attridgeville, Lodium, and Olivenhout Bosch on our way to Centec. But let me thank you, Chairperson. Do you have any last words?
Okay. Thanks, Chair. No, thanks for everything. I thought it might still be worth it to ask the EXCO to just stand up because there's 3 members who didn't see them, and I know we did introduce them because I don't think we always give them the recognition due. So I just thought for the benefit of the Chair and 2 other honorable members, if I can just ask them to, so you know, these are the culprits or the people driving the change. Yeah, that's all really.
I know that one. I looked on the website because I wanted to know the face of the gentleman who does not respond to the people of Saldanha in the Western Cape. Yes,
Okay.
Mr. It's you.
I will bring him with a chair when we next come through.
Thank you
That's
very
that's
much.
all I wanted to say, and
You're-
thanks for the hearing from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, DDG Shelembe. I think there is a need for a deep dive into the Post Bank, and we'll be making those arrangements shortly. So let's adjourn, honorable members, and proceed as per the program that has been directed to us. And CEO, when you are on the ground, I hope you're going to retain this confidence. Thank you very much.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So I'm not talking to this, right? Must I pretend like I'm talking here? Okay. So you're gonna ask me a question, or must I just pretend?
Ask you questions,
Like
I
I'm
think.
okay.
But let me double check something. Yes, it is screen, but
No, there's no question. She knows what she's just going to explain. Because it's one answer she needs to.
So people who do not have their cards, the black card by March, we guarantee that they will have access to their grants. It is quite important for us that they must have their access to their grant. So if you don't have your card, their black card by March, SAPO branches will be there to give you access to go and collect your grant. The second thing that we're doing, when you go to our queues right now, as of next week, you're going to see people registering you for the cardless solution. Please, it is not a scam. Register for the cardless solution, because that also is another quick way for you to still access your grant while you wait for the black card. So to guarantee you that you have it even post-March. That's all, right?